I'm still locked down. I never leave my house now, it seems like.
To be fair, it's scary in the future things. Everybody's wearing their masks. It makes me cringe every time I see people wearing masks.
So depressing.
It really is.
All right, so we're counting down. Yeah,
we've just gone live now.
Okay.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, we've gone live. So welcome to episode 4. I believe it's episode 4 of the Blob Watch, where we talk about current events, things that happened last week that has piqued our guests' interest. And today we've got reoccurring guest Plantagenet.
Hello, everybody.
And also a new guest to this stream, Justine Brown's Bookshelf.
Good evening.
And we've all done a stream together on Plantagenet's channel of the Glorious Revolution and the Whiggish interpretation on there, which I will link in the description after we finish the stream. I think I might have already linked it in, actually, come to think of it. I can't remember. So hopefully that's all done.
I'm about to upload a video that's based on the research that I did for that stream.
Oh, cool. Because I remember, I think in the stream you referenced Moldbug a fair bit. I'm guessing he was part of that research as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of a Moldbug aficionado now. I mean, I've even subscribed to his Substack. He's publishing a new book called The Grey Mirror for Princes, which is a kind of based on the Machiavelli's Prince format. I think Machiavelli's Prince was a departure from the traditional Renaissance genre of advice to princes, in that it was kind of very realpolitik advice to princes.
It was the first blackpilling content, I think, probably. In many ways, I don't know if you heard this, Justine, before, but the Black Prince, it was. I heard somewhere that it was it was somewhat inspired from, or in a way related to, Cesare Borgia, of the Borgia family, and of course his father, who became, it was Alexander the 5th or 7th or something, who's the Pope, and of course it was something. I remember reading it was something about how Black Prince was related in the idea of Cesare Borgia related to the Prince, of this sort of leader figure and how a leader should be, sort of thing.
I think it was that. I'm not positive. I have read it a couple of times, but it's been a while. I think it was advice to one of, who's the Florentine family?
Is it the Medicis or the
Medici? Yeah, I think it was. Wasn't it advice to one of those, and perhaps modeling it on Cesare Borgia? I mean,
I think it was, yes, because that was the thing. Because I remember that Machiavelli, he sort of did a turn where he worked with the Medicis, and then he went to the Pazis, and then when the Medicis beat the Pazis, he was exiled, and then he sort of managed to worm his way back into their good books, which probably gives you the show of how much of a great political thinker that he was, because he was able to take on the Medicis, who were very Machiavellian, you could say, in their own regards.
Have you seen? There's quite a good series. It's actually on Netflix, of all places.
Yes, I've watched that. Yes, because the season 1, it follows Lorenzo's grandfather, Cosimo Medici. He was the one that built responsible for the building of the dome in Florence. I think it's like Saint Mary's Cathedral of something. I can't remember the full title.
The main cathedral. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, that was incredible. It's a very good series to watch, and then of course I think the second and third season it covers Lorenzo and the sort of rivalry with the Patsy family.
Yeah, it's worth watching even just for the sets, because it's so that some, you know, they're shot partly in Florence, and it's just incredibly wonderful looking. And you have Botticelli as a character, and Michelangelo as a character. But just going back to Moldbug, so Moldbug is writing this Grey Mirror for Princes, and his idea is that we should sort of sit back and watch this thing play out and just prepare for what comes next. And so he's offering advice, and he's kind of I think what he's hoping is that there could be like a Velvet Revolution along the lines of the Czech Republic.
Yeah. I mean, that does sound like a wise thing, because it does feel that like events that transpire have been several steps ahead of, I guess, I don't want to say like us normal people, but us as because I mean this was the thing, like if you take like this week's example with the proms, and the whole sort of BBC's attempt to get rid of the lyrics to Land of Hope and Glory and Rule Britannia and everything.
Right. They were just going to have the music and not the lyrics, right?
That was it, yeah. And then, of course, I think there was, even with the music, there was going to be a reimagining. So I don't even know if the notes would be exact to what.
Oh, no.
Reimagining with what, like African choruses?
bongo drums, yeah, and all that. And so if you take that as an example now, something like that, it sort of catches our side off guard. These sort of things, and I think, like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but Black Lives Matter sort of thing that happening in, I mean, I wasn't surprised it happened in the United States. I was a bit surprised it came here.
Well, I mean, at least back in 2016, when there's the Black Lives, it was quite prominent back then, at least in these circles. I do actually remember seeing in London. I was in somewhere in South London. I actually did see like a actual Black Lives Matter protest even then. So from that just experience, I wasn't actually. I didn't expect it to pick up as much as it did, but yeah, definitely the scale of it surprised me.
Yeah,
I've been consistent. Sorry, go ahead.
No, so you go ahead. It's all right.
I've been consistently infuriated that the left has managed to import this discourse of whiteness in particular. You know, I mean, the so-called white people of the British Isles are just native British people, right?
Yeah. White. It makes me want to punch the wall every time I hear it on it's really
I mean, it classes like all Europeans together as well, doesn't
it? The thing is, in the States, I grew up in Canada, by the way, but I did live in the States for several years when I was a kid as well, though I went to school in New York City, which put me at the front lines of a lot of this stuff. In the States, the sort of whiteness category is not just about distinguishing yourself from Black. It's about creating a kind of new identity out of the various European identities.
Yeah.
You know, and sort of collapsing them together. Yeah, and in one way that's kind of it kind of worked, right? Because you got a new American identity out of all of these groups that could have been, I guess, fighting or, you know, not lacking in unity. But in another way, it's meant that all these groups have lost their ancestry, and their ancestral traditions, and then this poisonous concept of the white, the white people and everything now has been not with complete success, but with some success imported into Britain. It's a disaster, frankly.
Yeah, I think back to I don't know if you guys seen the Question Time. It was with Lawrence Fox, and there was this. I can't remember where it was. I think it was I think it was like Liverpool or somewhere like that. And what happened was he was on this panel, and this university professor said, what the whole like lived experiences, blah blah blah, white man, that sort of stuff. And as soon as she went into that, the whole crowd, or the whole audience, I should say, from what I could see, sort of booed her, and sort of either booed or just did a massive sigh, like in frustration.
And he did as well, right?
Yeah, and even large parts of the panel, and it sort of showed to, because obviously United States that probably wouldn't have happened because I imagine it's sort of somewhat normal, that sort of political argument is quite normal, but obviously here it didn't strike a chord because, as you said, it's an import which has no real material basis in this country.
At least I think largely it depends on the region and the age group of people that are actually coming to grasp those concepts. Because at least in the M25 belt, like the Bristol, Brighton, these sort of things will actually, even amongst just ordinary people, they will actually have gained traction, which is quite unfortunate, and especially with the younger generations. Because I remember when I first kind of became aware of like identity politics and intersectional politics, it was just the universities, it was just kept there, but now it's become, at least from the people in my age, it's a lot more just these terms are being used in common discourse now, which is quite worrying, at least for me.
Yeah,
it's partly been imported into the education system in Britain, and partly they're picking it up from mass media, which obviously is still American oriented.
Yeah,
especially with the just like the people sharing stuff on social media, just like the it's always like this will be like the typical phrases, white fragility, white fragility, etc., etc., and people just like ban them without even understanding where the concepts come from, where the ideas behind them, what they're meant to actually, like the tactics that are involved behind them.
Yeah, with Robin, is it Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility? I have well, I will openly admit that I have illegally downloaded an audio copy because I will not pay for such crap. And I don't usually advocate book burning. But if there was a book that needed to be burnt, that there was there was such an urge and need in society, that would be the one book that I would recommend to be on the top of the pile, because it all basically, from what I could read, and I didn't read all of it, but I read enough to sort of get the gist. Is basically, I'm white, and hence I am better because I am white, which sounded a bit strange because it sounded like a bit of a white nationalist argument she was coming from, which was really strange because I wasn't expecting it. And so when I was reading it, I had to look her up because I was thinking, wait a minute, is she a member of the Ku Klux Klan or something? What's going on here?
Is she trying to say, like, yes, we do all think like this. We are racists. I'm a racist. Is that the idea?
Basically, yeah. I mean, maybe she does think, maybe she is a racist, and she does have she does go around thinking. That's up to her. But I mean, I don't know if she's. I mean, I imagine she's probably talking from a. Well, she says it from a white perspective. So I mean, does she mean like white people in America and Europe, or just in America? Because obviously, as we've been saying, this is a American import, and because when I see it as obviously an outsider who I've never been to the United States, and my knowledge on American politics is somewhat limited, though I have been taking a bit of an interest of late. It seems to me to it seems to be like unironically promoting the sort of, you could say, like the Dixiecrat philosophy.
Yeah, only claiming to be on the left, kind of. Isn't she just sort of saying, like, yes, I'm confirming all your worst fears about what white people are, and we need to be stamped out because we're so bad like this, kind of thing. That's my well, they've gone from, like, when I was a little kid and I went to school in Manhattan for 3 years. We were sold the sort of Martin Luther King vision, which I think most people can have some sympathy with, right? Which is the, judge a man by the content of his character, not the color of his skin type thing. And I think most of us, even if we do have like some awareness of, I don't know, just, it's a complicated question, but I think most people are willing to take individuals on an individual basis, right? And sort of keep an open mind about them, not sort of judge or dismiss them based on their race, right? And so I think this was quite appealing to people. And that's most of us, because I grew up in a very liberal left family. And we all like believe that, while at the same time being like uncomfortably aware of certain things, like that we were scared and there were really high crime rates and stuff like that. Right? But we all sort of believe that. But basically, because the left hasn't had the kind of outcomes, their programs have not produced the sort of outcomes that they promised to their minority delegates. They have to blame somebody, right? So they've switched from this kind of color blind approach and definition of racism to acknowledging race and making a big deal out of race and insisting that if you don't acknowledge race and if you don't talk about it all day long and say things like, I see your blackness and I honor it, and this kind of rubbish, right? That is now the new racism.
Although, actually, I mean, interestingly, even these sort of ideas were actually kind of building prevalence in the 90s, and even in the 80s and 70s, they were actually around. It's just they didn't have the establishment backing behind it to actually bring them to the forefront of the conversation.
Yeah, this has been kind of, I think it's a lot of it went on in the academy. When I was in graduate school, there was this sort of the postmodern kind of approach to identity politics was definitely present. And so what's weird is that you think when you're in graduate school, you just think this is like a kind of specialized thing, like a niche thing, and all of a sudden it goes mainstream.
Well, I think that's how a lot of people my age are viewing it at this university. They think, oh, it's a university idea. It must have some relevance or some validity to it. It's not just. It's not. What's the? I've forgotten the Miesian term for it. Pragiology or whatever it is. Yeah, where it's the Marxians applying their own logic to something rather than just the universal logic.
Right.
Yeah.
So people think it must have some credibility because it's coming out of the universities?
Yeah, at least that's the way I've seen most people.
Hitchens has described it as like Hitchens has described it as like the sort of I think Hitchens and a few others in this country have used like the supposed experts, the unquestionable experts, and they're very much like what you would describe to be the modern day monastery monks who would have the knowledge of all power, and to question any of it would basically you'd be ostracized from society. And I mean, there's plenty of examples, obviously, like with the Black Lives Matter thing, those who've questioned their motives or the organization or whoever funds those, which we'll go on to, a certain Hungarian philanthropist whose name, if I mention, will get this stream shut down.
Can't we saying that?
He must be about 90 now or something.
It's pretty old, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's in his 90s now. So,
is he actually?
Yeah, I think he's actually 90. So
exactly.
Old buggers going on strong. And I just want to say thank you to Makuta Pterodax for shilling this stream out over Discord and parts of Twitter. Thank you very much. And he's also sent another comment in. I'll just bring up here at Shaitori at Waterstones. I passed a few days ago had the book Why I Have Stopped Talking to White People About Race all over the front window.
Well, actually, I was in when I was every like Waterstones I've been into has like a whole section dedicated now to racial issues, and serve like a lot of just like smaller independent bookstores I've been into. At least you can kind of tell when you look into them that they're going to be from a lefty woke perspective, but the actual owners of the bookstores, I mean. But yeah, there's a lot of bookstores I've seen that have got like whole just dedicated to it. It's quite scary, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. When I go into Waterstones, I usually go in there to one thing, and that's basically like it's like the historical section and battle and war tactics. So I just walk past all that. I don't usually notice it. I have seen a couple of. I mean, I remember during the referendum, I saw like it was like Nick Clegg's book and like the why Brexiteers are. Yeah, and I saw like books about racism and Brexiteers and like people this was this was in Taunton and everything near to where I live, and there were people in there like picking up the book and everything, and it was quite deliberately plastered in the positions in the store where you would when you walk in, it'd be the first thing you see. So yeah, I mean you can't really and that's the thing, because obviously you got companies, corporations, businesses all pushing this. Even my workplace has been pushing this, and the line of work that I do has nothing political and like nothing, just absolutely nothing like to do with any sort of community or political anything. And then I just got like a memo one day saying this is what the company's doing, and expect some like levels of diversity training. And then I just started streaming because I just got so mad it just sort of snapped with me. I couldn't have this the silence any longer. I couldn't just do the History Channel stuff. And
I'm so lucky I have never had to undergo diversity training, because I think I might have to quit or something. But my brother was doing diversity training, and he works for a company in the States, and he's a liberal. He was reading this stuff out like, no, this is reasonable, and I was just getting like really wound up by because the question he read to me was really manipulative. It said it was like the first question was, do you feel comfortable at work? And he answered yes. And it said, well, not everybody does. Did you ever think of that? That was yeah. So then he said, yeah, gee, that really made me think, maybe I never occurred to me, maybe not everybody does.
Well, that's the whole thing about that, the racial bias diversity training. It just makes you more aware of race, and it's more, you generally see race a lot more than before you did it, which is, I mean, if anything, that's the opposite of what you should be doing if you want to create a less racial society.
They've moved the goalposts, right? Like, as I was saying, it's sort of changing the definition of racism and our goal, from this race blind thing to race conscious, but they will still go back and forth between the two definitions. It's like feminism is the same, right? You go back and forth.
It goes back to the like polylogism, where it's basically taken like, saying like there's the racial modes of thinking and different class ways of thinking, and but then kind of like I don't know. I feel like they've taken quite a cynical, like postmodern perspective in the sense of power and like culture, and they've applied it through like Marxian logic. And it's quite, I'll give them, it's quite effective of a way of bringing down your opponents.
In that it's like they've decided that power is all that matters, and they'll do whatever they can to get it, right? So if that means, well, since they've thrown out, our whole culture has thrown out virtue theory, right? Like they don't feel that they need to be consistent because it's just whatever works, essentially, right?
Yeah. And probably that would segue nice into, because obviously this stream is titled is The Revenge of the Kenosha Kid. the fastest quick drawer in the West.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, God, that
What a
video,
guy.
he had a
Honestly.
real quick draw on him. I mean, that was impressive.
Mm.
And of course, the he has been arrested because he did kill 2 people.
But didn't he
One
handed
one of
himself in
First
afterwards? didn't he?
degree homicide, I believe, didn't they? Which is a hard thing to stick.
Yeah, I mean that. I see. I have a theory. I was actually talking about it to my mother because she's a barrister in this country, and she knows she's done a bit of American law when she was studying. She said that she thinks that it might have been done on purpose so that the case would be dropped because it's like sort of wrecking it before it can go any further because there's multiple things like you said. I mean, like first of all, that one of the guys that he shot in the arm had a Colt. Was holding some sort of pistol.
He was legally holding it as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, and there's. I mean, I shared a video on Twitter with Tim Pool, who put out this video where it was like a response from the lawyer for the accused, which is Kyle. Was it Carl Bittenhouse or Wittenhouse?
I can quickly check. I've got it on my phone.
Something House, definitely.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, I mean, have you seen the backgrounds of the people that he shot?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I actually did some research before I came on stream. So obviously us here at Blob Watch will consistently go for accuracy and everything. We're not the Guardian. We don't make up bullshit. So. First one, the one they've been saying that he's a paedophile. I had a look on local records, criminal records, and everything, United States to find anything. I couldn't find anything on the name, and there is some suggestion that it may be faked. It may have been faked. So I cannot 100% certain that he was a registered sex offender. The other person who was shot in the chest, though, with the one with the skateboard. He had been arrested and prosecuted for multiple assaults, domestic abuse, that sort of stuff. So that one I did find, and that is confirmable. And if you go on, I think it's like with that name. If you could go on Twitter and you find his name, and you search it in the registered list, you can find those information on conviction. He has quite a long rap sheet as well. The one guy with the skateboard, he had quite a long rap sheet from what I could see. So
I thought it was like 3 or 4 domestic assault cases alone.
Yeah, and then like the just your bog standard assault cases. I mean, yeah, he had quite a very long list indeed.
A bit like the shooting victim, the guy the cop shot on the black guy.
Oh yeah, a couple days ago.
He also had a bunch of domestic assaults and sexual assault, I believe, on his record.
Yes,
they're
not sending their best, as Trump would say.
Well, I mean, I was reading about the communists post World War II and how they'd actually employ like criminals and thugs from prisons as like members of their party. And I'm honestly convinced at this point now that Antifa, whoever's like controlling these organizations, are actively recruiting from like the dregs of society as actively as they can, and just.
It does seem like every time it's they have some record and they're creeps.
They've always got some shady history.
I mean, I think that is quite accurate because obviously if they want to achieve a political goal, which is through violence, you have to get the most violent people to deliver that. I mean, like with the Nazis, they used to recruit with the Volkssturm straight. The Freikorps. Yeah, that's. The Volkssturm was
a bit later.
Yeah, that was a bit later. The Freikorps, and then of course that sort of amalgamated into the SA. They were quite predominantly former military criminals, thugs. I mean, I guess you could say they were used for the sole purpose of on-ground muscle. To basically, I mean, I don't know if you've seen that the video of I'll just see if I can find it actually while we're talking here, because this happened before the shooting. Was the woman who was sitting at like this DC restaurant, and
Oh, yeah,
this crowd gathered around her and were just screaming at her to do the Black Power symbol or something, and she was refusing to do it, and it just basically I tell you what, it was very tense watching it because I felt really scared for her in many ways because
really identify, don't you? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, once you kind of put yourself out there as not going along with what the crowd are, you do put yourself in a genuinely dangerous situation. It seems like in the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Did people see that video of the girl who got on her knees when some kid was saying, like, you have to, I'm from Black Lives Matter. You need to get on your knees and say you're sorry for your whiteness or whatever it was.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of.
He was just some random teenager, but he knew he could deploy that.
Yeah. And unironically, I just got a video here of a black congressman, and you basically have again protesters, quote unquote protesters, predominantly white, hurling abuse at him, calling him coon, Uncle Tom, the usual stuff. And I mean, it's just amazing to watch because I mean,
is he a Republican?
How is this not different from what would have happened in the Deep South with the lynchings and such?
Is he a Republican? Why was he targeted
in the 20s and 30s?
Why was he targeted?
Up until the Civil Rights Movement. I mean, how is that not different?
Well, they have the ideology is the right one. They can say what they want, really. We all know how it works.
Why was he targeted? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Sorry. I was just wondering, was he a Republican, or do we know why he was targeted?
I don't know.
He was a Democrat that attended the RNC. From what I can see, this particular congressman, he was. Can you hear it at all?
Oh, there's no volume. No.
No, I didn't think so. There never is with this lot. Yeah, he's a Democrat, and he attended the Republican National Convention at the White House, and obviously the mob were waiting outside for people to come out, and or like you can see there with Ron Paul,
Right.
they were waiting outside for him, and it again, typical mob mentality of it wasn't in this case, it wasn't just hurling abuse, it was actually trying to physically get to him, and then that goes to the thing, with Kyle, the Kenosha kid, we're seeing violence happening more and more, and the point is, what is their purpose? Because from where I'm sitting, they're trying to. I would say if the police weren't there, they would have killed them, and they would have killed him if the police weren't there, and they would have severely injured him. And with Kyle, I think he had every justification to shoot those two people, from what I could see from the footage, because at the end of the day, he would have more than especially the one with the gun, he would be dead now. And if and let's just say he didn't take that shot, nothing. We wouldn't be talking about the story now. We probably would be talking about the story, but it wouldn't be talked about like it has been now.
Right. Yeah, he'd just die, and that would be it, and we'd forget him. Remember what happened to that black ex-police officer? What was his name? David something. Who was trying to defend a friend's shop, and he got murdered.
His wife. You can go on YouTube and go onto the look at the RNC. I think stream. His wife appeared on there, and went through, explained his life and his career and how he died. And I mean, and then that's the thing. Like, since this whole Black Lives Matter thing in the United States blew up, I mean, there have been 30 odd deaths now, and most of the deaths have been other black men.
Yeah.
Or and it's sort of going. I mean, I'm at the point where I don't know how anyone now it can. I mean, first of all, I be a bold prediction here. I think Trump's going to win in November. I wasn't sure before the protest, but or then the rioting. But now, from what's been happening over the last few months, I'm in the camp where I think Trump is going to win. It's just going to be interesting to see what the figures, what the results will be. Because there's been a lot of talk of certain states flipping, like New York flipping to Donald Trump.
That would be. I mean, if that happened, it would be a miracle, but it would be very entertaining.
Wasn't there quite a large Republican voting base in New York? Something like, was it 800,000? That was a city of 7 million. It's quite surprising. Apparently, it's growing since the riots. I think it was Anakin Cringe-Walker saying something about that the other day.
The state itself is pretty red, but it's the city of New York that carries the day. There is, I mean, Rudy Giuliani won the mayoralty in the 90s, and that was because of the state of violence and disorder on the street, that people who typically never vote Republican voted Republican.
Was he the last Republican mayor of New York?
Yes.
Oh, it's Kyle.
Yeah, there he is now. Upon further research of this young fellow, from what I can gather, this is what his lawyer put out, right? So first of all, he lives in Illinois, but he lives 20 miles away from this Kenosha, which is obviously Wisconsin. So, 20 minutes away. So he's very. So when they say, like, when the media is saying, "Oh, he drove across state lines and everything,"
so it's not that far. Actually,
it's not like how he didn't like drive like half the day to get to this one place to shoot up. And as you can see, he's talking to the interviewer, and he basically saying why he's here. He said to protect property because he works at as a lifeguard in Kenosha, from what his lawyer was saying, and and this is the unclear bit, so maybe it might come out a bit later in court. But he was asked by the car dealership, the chap who owned the car dealership, and if he could go out with a few others to protect the property from protesters, rioters, and potential looters, because obviously it was known that there would be suspected to be some trouble that evening. And he was saying you can't obviously hear the volume, but what he is saying is basically, I'm out here as a first aid responder. He's showing off his first aid bag, saying, this is what I'm here to do. And he's going to administer first aid not just to his own side, but in case any of the Black Lives Matter Antifa lot are injured, he would administer aid to them. Of course. Sorry.
In the at least in the video I saw, he'd lost that bag when he actually the shooting occurred, didn't it? Because had it been taken off him or like grabbed or something by the protesters? I don't know.
Yeah, when he shot the first bloke, the bag was on him. But because this is the thing, and we'll forensically go through the clips to see how it transpired for this young man. And also, just another thing, that there's a lot of thing going around that he's got like an AR-15. That's not an AR-15. I think that is a modified. Someone told me it's like a modified SMG or something like that. So it's not an AR-15. So again, Washington Post, New York Times.
Looks like a Canadian military rifle. I thought it looked quite similar to. I can't remember exactly the SIG 553 or something. I can't remember if that's the one. I probably butchered it, but it looked quite similar to that. The Canadian kind of like short assault rifle.
It looks like a very innocent young man.
Yeah, he and of course this again, one of the things the media is reporting that he brought this weapon across state line. Again, that's not true. The weapon of origin itself never left the state to go back to his hometown in Illinois. It never crossed the border, according to his lawyers as well. So again, that's another thing which they've definitely refuted in the mainstream media as well. So yeah, if we go to the first shooting, the one that is, and the trouble with this one is that it's really unclear to see how what happened.
I do feel sorry. I mean, I'm assuming he'll get away with. I mean, he should obviously go off innocent. I don't think he'll be go to prison for this, but it's obviously gonna have a big effect on his life, and even just like going back to school and stuff. It's never gonna be the same for him.
No, he can never go back to school. So this is the video. I can't find the whole video, but basically, from what this is what there's, because a lot of it's been deleted now, because obviously it's quite graphic, and some of it. No, this one was quite graphic because this was the first person he shot, and he shot in the head at point blank. And this was the person that has been accused of being a paedophile. And from basically what happened was, in the build-up of it, Kyle was running across this car park to the set of cars. You can see him there now. A gunshot goes off, which isn't, again, the mainstream media say that this was Kyle firing his weapon. It wasn't. It's quite clear that there's a separate muzzle flash from a person several feet behind him with a handgun who is shooting.
Could that be one of the Antifa guys then that he shot, or somebody else?
Possibly. Do you mean that the person who was shot might be shot by the Antifa guy, or?
No, I'm just wondering, like, was the gun, do we know the gun was one of the people who he ended up shooting, or was it somebody?
Oh, yeah, it possibly the guy whose arm was shot to bits. There's been some suggestion that it might have been that chap, but again, the video is so grainy. There's two videos of it. I had a look at it. I couldn't identify, because again, the light was so poor. I couldn't identify if it's the same person. I don't think it was, though, and I'll tell you for why in a sec. But there was this in the clip where he shot the two people, the skateboard guy and the one with the who tried to put a handgun on him. When Carl got up again and walked off calmly towards the police line, there were several more gunshots again, which the media were trying to suggest that was him firing as he was walking back or something, which wasn't true at all, because it was quite clearly small arms fire from a pistol. Again, several meters from down the road where he was running from. So there may have been multiple people there with weapons, because the person who was shot in the arm was unable to be firing that pistol that he had on him. So I think there were several people there with guns firing, and I think again, the problem is this poor young man has now been is the scapegoat.
Yeah.
For all of this, I mean, again, this thing saying, oh, he's an active shooter. He's not an active shooter. I mean, the only way you could argue that is if he just walked around and started wasting half the crowd, and then you could argue that maybe you could class him as active shooter. But I mean, no, he like in this clip, you see him actually phoning up somebody to inform that he's shot. Again, I couldn't find out who he was phoning up. That possibly emergency services. I don't know.
So what I've needs to wear, he was I think, was he alone at this point? Because
yes, he was. Yeah.
From what I heard, he was basically chased for about 600-700 feet by a crowd of people.
Yeah.
That commented in him when he kind of gets pushed over and attacked by the skateboard. Then he shoots the I'm assuming this is the first one in the video you've got here, and then he shot the other two in the second.
The first person was the first, because this is the thing. He was with a group. He was then walking back to they got a phone call saying, "Can you come back to the car dealership because the mobs turned up again?" So he went round, but he had to go round a different route because the police blocked off the previous route. And then, of course, he came out by himself in this car park area, and then that's when he was chased across the car park. He turns round, hears gunshots, and he sees this guy charging at him, and he fires several off, and he shoots him in the head, point blank. And you probably can make out there's another chap with him as well, who I think gets some shrapnel or some other fragments, because he ends up taking off his shirt, and you can see a bit of blood, so maybe he gets hit slightly. I don't know, that there hasn't been really much said about that particular individual, but he takes off his shirt just to also help with the wound. But yeah, the guy that he shoots in the head point blank, I mean, he goes down quite quickly. And then you can see him here just standing phoning somebody, and if I play the clip, you'll see what he ends up doing, because then the crowd starts realizing what is happening, and he just says, "I've just shot somebody," and he's running off up the road.
My cousin, who was in the military, was very impressed with his cool head.
Adrenaline I've been going through him. The fact he managed to shoot the 3 people attacking him and not hit anybody else, and
so
very, very good trigger discipline.
This is the clip in question where he gets chased up the road after he shot the first person, and you can see them. They're basically charging after him. But you can hear a few gunshots, and this is where shoots one person, shoots the second person in the arm, and the second person he shoots in the arm. So I'll just, because the main thing is how quickly it all happens. So much happens, because the first person he shoots with a skateboard, where the skateboard actually makes contact with his head. He shoots him right there. We go. He just shoots him in the chest, and he goes down near the car. And the second person he shoots, and this is where it's a bit hard to see, but it's on a bit of a repeat. I will try and find the exact moment, and this is where he's arguing self-defense. Is this person here? If you can see the mouse, he comes in, and he is not armed, hence why he doesn't shoot him immediately. But then between here, he pulls out a pistol. And the pistol is actually pointed at him. So he is, at this stage, because he could have just fired right away at Kyle. And Kyle, again, amazing trigger discipline. And you can probably see him extending his arm just a bit here.
Is the guy who goes? I think Kyle just shot. Is he? Is he blocking the firing line of the guy who's pulled out the pistol? Is that why
he is? That's the only fortunate thing for Kyle, is that the idiot, the person here that's sort of that he shoots first one, he gets shot in the chest immediately, and he dies, and he sort of takes several steps, and then collapses, and he dies instantly, according to the report that the police released. He died instantly at the scene. And the trouble is, Kyle, when he's firing, his gun is pointing several degrees away from the second potential threat that comes in. And so again, on the odds, unless you're especially trained, even especially trained would struggle to readjust to take out the second guy. Bearing in mind the second man here, who has the handgun on him, has a perfect for a few split seconds, has a perfect line of sight to take out Kyle. But fortunately, obviously, maybe from what I could see, he gets closer. So I think he wants to take out Kyle even closer, just because he doesn't want to miss.
Did he get any shots off the guy with the handgun, or did you just?
I don't think he did. I think because now this is where there was a split second, and that's why I'd be saying like the fastest quick drawer in the West, because you'll see you can see it coming in. There you go. Gun is in. He's pointing the gun, and he puts his hands up immediately, because Kyle sees what he's doing, and he puts his hands up, and then hand comes down, gun comes out, and then pop,
And so is this the guy shot in the arm?
Yeah, this is the guy who's got shot. And this is a real scummy thing because the guy who was shot in the arm, he originally put his gun away for an instant because Kyle saw him and he put his hands up to make it look like, oh, I'm no threat to you. And then as soon as Kyle turned his head, he brought out the gun again. And then that's when Kyle shot him in the arm.
Really have no.
Wow.
Yeah.
No chivalry, no honor, disgraceful, really.
No, exactly. And he again, and this is the thing. Because he shot the chap in the arm at such close range, and the fact that it was a rifle, and if you see the clips, I can't find it. I'm not going to show any bits afterwards because it's pretty gory. But
the picture of like his
arm
afterwards, yeah, it's just completely blown away.
It's completely blown away. But some people were saying, why wasn't there there wasn't enough blood coming through? And it's because the heat and the impact cauterized his arm. So that's why there was no extensive bleeding, because he was shot at point blank effectively with a rifle. It sort of cauterized the wound.
I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but I think it was the guy that survived. He put something out on his social media saying that he's like sad he didn't manage to like kill more something. I mean, that can't work in his favor when it comes to court.
Thank you. Yeah, because that statement right there is going to help Kyle quite a bit.
Yeah, and also, I mean, this is the point. I just found the bit where Kyle does something really good, and this is for weapons training. He sits himself up. He gets his position ready because he knows this guy's coming in to come at him with something, and that's when he sees the gun. Because he gets himself back up, he sees the gun, and then yeah, and you can see the smoke. That's the moment where his arm was again, large parts was blown off, and the wound was cauterized because of that. And I mean, again, there's some clips. He must have been inches from him. That's how close he was. It was so close.
Do you reckon the guy with the pistol was going to put the pistol to Kyle's head or something? Like,
I think from what I could see with the way that he was handling the pistol, and I would say that he was going to get close enough to Kyle to shoot him at point blank because even with the person with the pistol, I mean, I fired a rifle. I haven't fired a pistol before, but I know even with a rifle, you have better chances the closer you are. Now, again, with the pistol, in that sort of condition, it's dark and everything. If you wanted to shoot somebody and actually get shots off on them, you would want to go as close as possible. Again, but especially when your opponent's got a rifle. I mean, you're going up against someone with a pistol who's got a rifle, and usually the person with the rifle 9 times out of 10 will win every time.
I mean, also not to make a broad statement, or sweeping statement, but it seems like a lot of these Antifa types, even though they might have a weapon, they haven't really had much weapons training or know how to handle it well or keep it in good condition. It seems like they can handle them, very well.
So, have either of you come into contact with any of these Antifa guys?
Yes,
I've met a couple in Bristol at the Sargon event, which was interesting.
I came across them in Oxford, and it was at a pro-Palestine event, and Antifa were there, and they were waving leaflets in my face, and I said, "I'm not interested." And then they said, "Why are you not interested?" And then I just said, because I don't want to fund any more Jeremy Corbyn campaigns. And then they sort of screamed in my face, and I just walked away from them. I didn't really engage with them. That was the only time I met Antifa. I mean, I've been to like Stokes Croft in Bristol, which I know is like the sort of
People's Republic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the den of Antifa. It's like the sort of dark, dungeony den of them.
I was walking up and down I was walking up down Stokes Croft today, and I saw I saw a couple of times. I was like, "You're definitely an Antifa." There's no doubt about that.
Do you what sort of guys do you think they are? Mainly, like my sense of it, apart from these kind of criminal types that sort of hang on to them as well, most of them have gone to university. Yeah. And they've gone through the Marxism factory that is our universities at the moment. But another point that someone raised, and I forgot where I heard it, but I thought it was a really good point about what's happening, right? Which is that the university, because so many people go to university and they're exposed to leftist ideas, but just the sheer kind of numbers that are being churned through are creating an elite wannabe class, a sort of group of aspiring people who feel that because they've gone to university, they should therefore, have a lot of prestige, and they get out and find that they are just working at Starbucks or whatever, and then they're angry.
I mean, there seems to be a lot of disaffected people that are drawn to these sort of movements and organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's resentment.
Yeah, and a great deal of self-importance. I think that's the other thing, because they are given. I don't know, because I never went to any of these sort of courses where I let's say studying the revolutionary aspects or partake in any sort of revolutionary aspects. But I mean, I've seen people record these sort of courses where they sort of like hyped up these people. They say, you're the future, you're the revolution and all that, and past revolutions like the French and the Russian and such, and the Cuban. Yeah, they're all like glorified as and I think a lot of these they generally believe that they are fighting against a system, that they are revolutionaries, and that they will enact the perfect utopia.
My 12-year-old cousin went because there was a show at I think it was at the Tate celebrating 100 years since the Russian Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And there was all this because they had quite good typography and posters and stuff. So he came away really impressed, and he was wearing his badge, his like communist badge.
Oh dear, yeah.
Actually, I was in a antique shop the other day in near States Croft, and there was actually some sort of like workers' factory banner from like the Soviet Union. It was quite impressive actually. It was actually quite a nice banner, aside from being a commie banner.
Yeah, they had good graphics, right? And that's part of the attraction, is just the aesthetics of it. But so I sort of talked about the pile of 100 million bodies, that kind of thing. Tried to bring him down to earth a little bit, but I could kind of sense that he was hoping for a bit of a reaction as well, So I didn't feed into
send them to Ukraine and just send to Ukraine and be educated there.
Yeah.
On the merits of the Soviet Union and communism. I mean, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is it's been widely observed, but like the fact that the Holocaust is, of course, constantly referenced and decried, but we never hear anything about the Holodomor.
No, because I mean, and this is the theory that that I sort of adhere to slightly a bit, is that in reality, the Soviet Union were the main winners of World War II, more so than the Western. I mean, more so. I mean, Britain. I mean, you could argue Britain won, but it lost its empire because of it. So I don't know how you would measure that as a win. I wouldn't measure that as a win. Yeah.
I mean, and one of I was thinking the other day that like one of the results for Canadians has been that because Britain lost its empire, we kind of lost our identity, and so Canadians have gone from being like proud members of the British Empire and proud Brits to being vaguely, there's like this anti-Americanism which used to have something to do with rejecting the American Revolution and being loyal, and now it's just we hate Americans because we have a better like medical system or some rubbish.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys seen the image of the Spitfire with the NHS painting underneath it. Now that for me is that needs to be a cover of a book like the death of the empire or something, because that for me that sums it up in one image.
This is now what we worship, right? Is the NHS?
Yeah,
NHS.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of Canada's like raison d'etre as well in relation to the States, right? Because it's a smaller, in terms of population, a much smaller country, very similar to the U.S. in many respects, but with one or two key differences, and the leftists in the U.S. always refer to Canada's medical system. We want something like that, and so this is the one little tiny point of pride or something.
Well, I mean, I've said to Americans before when they've said, "Oh, health system like you have in Britain," and everything. It's like, well, careful what you wish for.
Yeah. It's not that.
It will never. First of all, if you ever have a NHS in America, it would. First of all, one thing is it will never be. It would never work. It will always be in a permanent state of crisis. There will never be enough money in it, and you'll have a lot of people who will miss a lot of key operations, and standards in hospitals would dramatically go down. They would dramatically go down. Hygiene would also go down because there's no incentive for hospitals to compete to be the best that they can be, like they have got in America at the moment.
Yeah, it's one thing Canadians don't tend to recognize about the situation is that the Canada has only one medical system and no private care, but the private care is actually called the United States of America. So if you have enough money and you need an operation fast, people just go to the States,
Yeah.
And then at the same time they'll say, oh, that horrible, United States, right?
I mean, even that isn't people always go to the United States as a healthcare service, like a private free market healthcare service, but the US federal government is massively involved in it as it is. So it's not even it's a good example of a free healthcare system in the first place.
Yeah, the United States is not really the libertarian state that people claim it is, right?
I mean, if it always pisses me off when people call the United States free market or it's really not.
Yeah,
no, it's not. It hasn't been for some time.
Since FDR.
Yeah. Again, I mean, you could say, did America win after World War II because the fabric of American society dramatically changed? It went from quite a I don't want to say inward because that's the negative connotation that the internationalists would use, but it went from a localist sort of society to a international interventionist society, and of course that happened over the period with FDR, and then of course with Truman, and so on and so forth, and it's quite interesting because of Eisenhower. He was, of course, he took over after Truman, but he one of his last speeches, which it's always used as a by I guess a lot of the libertarian sort of some conspiracy theorists, is where he warned against the military-industrial complex and basically the shadow government, effectively and he warned that it's growing out of. Basically, he was saying it's growing out of control from where I am, and it's something that needs to be stopped. And coming from a general, I always thought that was pretty amazing because that is that was not something I guess you would not hear from someone in his position.
Speaking of the military, somebody was mentioning that the military in some way signaled to Trump that they would not back him on. It had to do with the riots, on intervening with the riots, or.
Well, there were I don't know if you saw the videos of the National Guard kneeling to when they've been sent in. I think I'm pretty sure it was on the West Coast, so it's nothing surprising there.
Yeah,
they were kneeling. Yeah.
The problem is National Guards are levied from those states. So those National Guards that were kneeling were probably from say California. They were probably from California. But of course, if you send National Guards from let's just say for purpose like a place like somewhere like Arkansas or Arizona to California, it'd probably be a bit different results.
Yeah.
But that I mean, because I know like National Guard and the actual military is a bit different because I don't think, unless if I remember correctly, I think the president has to pass through the Insurrection Act to have military on the streets or something like that. There has to be like a special,
like an emergency,
yeah,
to have the sort of the actual military as opposed to the National Guard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like if you draw comparisons, like say in Britain now, in Britain in the 60s, we had obviously the problems, the rioting and the killings in Northern Ireland, and in this country, that's not. We have emergency powers, but that is not like as big, I guess you say, with what compared to America, the way that it has to be implemented. Because, like in theory, the prime minister could put soldiers on the streets tomorrow, and it wouldn't be much of a thing. And that's what the prime minister at the time did with Northern Ireland when everything was going out of hand. He just sent the British Army in to prevent the Protestants and Catholics from
killing each other,
burning. I mean, Belfast, the whole streets were wiped out, and half the city was burning.
Yeah.
When I went to Derry a couple of years ago, and at the Free Derry Museum, when they heard my accent, they didn't seem too happy at all. I'll put it that way.
Really, they were unfriendly, like actively unfriendly too.
They weren't unfriendly, but just where are you from? The way I was London. It didn't matter that I had like Irish Catholic descent. It's just where you're from.
Yeah, it's true. They don't respond to like those kinds of excuses. But it's just they do respond to the accent. I have some. My great grandfather was from Carlingford, which is right on the border of Northern Ireland. Like if you can just drive right across. And the IRA used to. I think it's very close to where Lord Mountbatten was blown up.
Yeah,
they blew him up right out there in Carlingford Loch.
It wasn't when he was like, was he on a fishing or something, or was on his yacht?
Yeah, he was on a boat, a fishing boat, and the bomb was planted, and it was blown up. He was blown up while fishing.
Yeah,
lovely way to go.
Yeah, yeah, and I was just trying to think. I mean, I don't have any connection. I mean, the only connection I can think I've got to Ireland, I remember asking my dad, and he said, "Well, your great uncle, he was in the military, and then he was in the police in Wales because he was Welsh, and then he was sent over to Ireland during the just after the Easter Rising and during the period where you had the sort of uprising, you could say, in Southern Ireland." He said he was in the Royal Irish Constabulary out there, and I said, "Well, what was it?" "Oh, I think he was a black and tan." I was like, "Oh, okay."
That's pretty based.
I was like, "Really?" And from what I could see, I did a bit of research. I think he was actually.
Reputation. My great grandfather played football for the Irish national team, but that was
maybe they met in maybe not the happiest moment, but
it was around the same time.
Yeah. Yes, so I found that out was obviously not something I went to Ireland I would actively discuss.
Don't think they particularly enjoy that.
No.
Speaking of the royal family in a very roundabout way, does anyone watch the Sean Atwood's channel?
Oh yeah, I've seen some of his. He actually he came into my school when I was younger and did like an anti-drugs talk.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
He's doing quite. I've been just watching because he's been covering the Epstein matter in great detail.
He does a really good job covering all of that. That's where I first saw him on his YouTube channel.
Oh, so he came in and because he was ecstasy and
like a
trafficker.
Yeah.
Then he ended up in Supermax in the US.
He had some pretty gruesome stories that he told us.
He's an interesting character, and he's been really covering a lot of interesting, like doing a lot of interesting interviews in the Justine matter. And his co-host was down at the protest today, the one in Trafalgar Square, sort of the freedom protest. I think it was anti-masking.
Yes.
And were there any other?
Get that up. I shall get that up actually because it's trending at the moment.
I mean, I don't know if you guys saw today in the Guardian. They to quickly go back on that. They said violence in Portland as the far right marches, completely ignoring the fact that there'd been like 60 continuous days of rioting and civil disorder in the city.
But what far right?
I think it was literally just homeowners, like
the far right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like homeowners that would have had enough of it. It's like the mystical far right finally strikes.
Oh yeah, I mean at this stage, I mean the far right is like an urban myth that with like the bloody Bigfoot and the aliens at Area 51. I mean they've all three of them are like the sacred American mythical creatures at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean
Speaker Spencer endorsed Joe Biden formally.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. that was funny.
They really, I mean, the wing that's really are just socialists, racial socialists.
Does kind of, I mean, some people thought it was as a wind up or something, but it wasn't because I heard him, talking a bit before his channel got banned, and he was definitely going in that direction.
Mm. Or maybe he's actually a CIA plant all along. Who knows?
Well, he's well connected, put it that way. He definitely knows, like he knows the Bush family and people like that.
I mean, he's quite well educated as well. Hasn't he got a master's in history or something? Or
he's very educated. Yeah, I mean, he has his good book. Like he's obviously I think he partly enjoys playing the supervillain, but he's clever. I mean, he has a good sense of humor. He's very sort of got very Gen X-y sensibility, and he's fairly hip and all that. It's got quite a bit going for him, but I think he's wrong about, like, he idolizes Nietzsche for one thing.
Yeah, and there was, I think, Milo Yiannopoulos. He leaked that audio recording after Charlottesville, and it's basically Richard Spencer having a massive freak out.
You people aren't fit to like. I never actually heard it, but
yeah, and he said, "We're gonna go back to this town and we're gonna fucking destroy it, and I'm not having some fucking macaroons ruin this for us." And it was absolutely probably one of the most funniest. Is again real villain. Like he sounds like a Bond villain having screaming at his men.
That's pretty. He is a Bond villain. I mean,
yeah, he is. Yeah, and I think he plays up to, as you said, he plays up to it.
Yeah, he plays a Bond villain on TV.
Right. So the anti-lockdown protesters in London. So again, there is a lot of stuff out there, but again, the main thing that mainstream media took away from this was, of course, someone holding a flag of the Union of Fascists. I mean, to be fair, people have actually been uploading recently since then more and more footage of the wider protests who, again, seemed rather, I mean, it's not like they all had flags of Union of Fascists, like just a sea of Union of Fascist flags. It was mainly just banners of people saying, about the, lies that have been told and the sort of ridiculous hype behind the lockdown. And of course, you got the salty leftists that when they see people questioning the advice from the experts, then of course that makes you a Nazi, like this chap here.
Yeah, because they fucking love science, these people.
Yeah, I can
Big
say.
bad
Yeah,
man.
I mean, Joe Smith. He is the same idiot that would be holding up a Black Power symbol in the air, fist in the air. So Joe Smith, there's only one people that I know that hold their arms in the air for something, and yeah, you're looking at the creators of it, Mister. So
Oh dear Lord, it's all so
yeah,
tiresome.
it
So-
is.
I'm kind of sad I didn't go to that protest today because I'm not far away.
No, I mean it was quite busy. It was quite a big turnout there. I wonder how much of it though, and Justine, because you live in London,
Yeah.
how much of it was it more of a rage against Sadiq Khan and his because here in the UK the lockdown is, while it's, you have the national lockdown, is also now being determined regionally, and of course Sadiq Khan, with his amazing powers that previous government has handed to him, handed over to the position of mayor. A lot of those decisions are now devolved to the mayor's office. So, how much of this was down to like Sadiq Khan's response?
That's a good question. Hadn't factored it in. I mean, he certainly is very unpopular in a lot of quarters. And,
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets re-elected as mayor.
well,
I'm going to vote. This is one of the elections I actually want to vote in, is the mayoral election, just to get Khan out of office, because he's just so terrible. Everything he's done, I can't think of one good thing he's done in his entire mayorship so far.
he's managed to bankrupt the.
Exactly, he's fucking. Didn't he freeze the first rise of inflation?
Yeah, now you can't drive into central London even on the weekends without getting a massive charge.
Oh dear.
And it was also something I remember reading something back along about a PR firm that he used.
It's like quite a few million, wasn't it?
Yeah, he used public money for the PR firm, and it was quite a bit. In fact, I want to say it was in the six-figure range.
I think it was in the millions. From what
It might have been the millions.
I
Yeah,
saw that it was I think 2 to 4 million, something around that number.
probably yes. And his response was, "Oh well, it's for promoting the mayoral office, not the person in the mayoral office, but the mayoral office as a whole." And it's like, right, okay, let's look at the campaign. Oh, it's all pro Labour, it's all pro Sadiq Khan imagery. Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah.
Well, maybe Boris should take a tip from Thatcher and just ban the lot of them.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
a broken man, isn't he?
He is. He's broken at this. I think he's a bit broken at this stage. I was actually earlier this week. I was on this because I'm a member of the party. I was at this online event in the end for the West Country, and I got to. He was the key speaker and doing the Q&A, Boris, and I got to chat very quickly with him.
And was he as winning as he appears to be?
Maybe he's tired of all this winning we've had.
His charming personality. He is charming, right? Like
he is. Yeah, he's very charming. He is a very good orator. He is like another person who's also a very good orator that the left also freaks out about constantly. He's also a very good orator, and he is a very funny guy. He's a very, like Trump. I think the only similarity you say with Trump is they're both quite good comedians. If they weren't in politics, they'd be quite good comedians.
But Trump's not an expert in ancient Greece and Rome, though.
No, that's the only thing. Trump is not an expert in ancient Greece and Rome, and it was saying because I really wanted to discuss with Boris actually ancient Greece and Rome and say So, you think the Greeks are somehow inherently better than the Romans? So let's go through this step by step.
Oh, did you see his debate with Mary Beardsley?
Yes, I did. Yes, yes, I did, and it was a very good debate. I mean, he knows a lot about. Obviously, he favors ancient Greece to that of Rome, and basically his he goes down the sort of route which is, well, if ancient Greece didn't happen, then Rome wouldn't happen, which is quite true in some aspects. So you can't really deny that, but
yeah.
But I mean, he seemed like politically, he went through all like the usual talking points, the party hymn sheet and everything.
But did you have the impression that he was still had the stuffing knocked out of him by getting sick?
Yeah.
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 I mean, at least with all the aside from that, the one clip on unpopular opinions this week, every time I've seen him, which is basically never, he just looks completely deflated and just lacks any energy. Also,
yeah,
quite,
I think he is quite. I think he's still unwell, and I think he is also. I don't think he is in the right place at the moment in time, and I think the trouble is there's nobody in the party at the moment that would. And this is the thing, maybe this is the inner Tory within me shining through at the moment, but there's a reason why the House of Cards is inspired on the sort of framework of the Conservative Party. I mean, the Conservative Party is filled with not just backstabbers, but kick them while they're down backstabbers to remove the weak. Remove the weak. In many ways, the Conservative Party is very similar to the Ottoman court. It's about as bloodthirsty and about as ruthless as it can get. And in the old days, Boris would have been removed very quickly if they showed even a sign of weakness. But no one wants to do that now. But the trouble is, the members are thinking it, but they're not. No one's saying it, but they all think it. And that leads me to the theory that I don't think he's going to stand at the next election.
Well, that's interesting. You just think it's this brush with death that just frightened him, and sort of he's not himself.
He has a child as well, hasn't he? So the guy's got double punch of having a kid that he's actually there for this time. Plus, maybe also.
Of course, he has other kids, but I just noticed something hilarious. In this photograph, you can see this is outside Canada House, so you have 3 Canadian flags.
Yeah.
Because Canada House is in Trafalgar Square.
Yes.
They're not going to be happy about that.
Contrast.
Maybe it's true. Maybe it's just Trudeau cosplaying again. That guy is just Trudeau, and he's cosplaying.
Yeah.
He's no longer doing the Aladdin stuff. He's now doing the Union of British bloke.
He's whiting up instead of blacking up.
Yeah. How many times did Trudeau blacken up? I mean,
many times.
Was it more? Oh, Jesus!
Oh God, that man's amazing.
And he survived the political process. I mean,
you know how far deep they are into the progressive, the progressive bunch is where they're like Teflon, where no matter how many things that they do or say, that they will be consistently forgiven by the sort of wokest leftists who would, again, anybody else, like on the either in the US Republican or Conservatives in Canada or the UK, if they did that, they would be hounded by the media and by the opposition to either apologize or to be sacked or prosecuted or whatever. And of course, tomorrow, if there's any reporting on the protests, this bloke here in this image will be the number one takeaway from it. Though I do find because, of course, there is a BAME person in shot.
Next to him, up on the left, top left as well, or someone of a Asian background, a Middle Eastern background as well.
Yes.
How are they not being like killed by the radiation from that thing?
Yeah.
Racist radiation.
There's also a child, and there's now I don't want to make such. Are these two women as well?
You could say that.
Yeah. So, in fact, it seems like a very progressive gathering.
Yeah.
Maybe the Guardian have infiltrated the event.
Maybe. Well, I mean, and that goes back to obviously, again, we've proved once again on these streams that the horseshoe theory is real.
Well, Trudeau is going to be. Yeah, I feel like I should tweet this at him because that would freak him out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd do it. I'd just tweet it at them. It's just saying this is how the world sees Canada. You're not progressive enough.
This is what you've come to.
Yeah.
Or what? Canada has now adopted the fascist flag as its.
Well, it's quite ironic. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw with the that shooting a month or two ago in Canada of Trudeau using the emergency powers to buy back and outlaw basically all firearms or like most firearms in Canada, which is a pretty fascistic act, if you ask me, using emergency powers to bypass Parliament.
He's deeply authoritarian. Yeah. He admires the Chinese government, like he says that openly.
Jesus Christ! I mean, there was that whole thing of the progressives being in bed with China, and it wouldn't surprise me how.
I don't know if you guys heard of this. It's a group in the UK, and it's called the 48 Group, and it is basically made up of senior members of my party, which I will quite happily name as one being Michael Heseltine, senior members of the Labour Party, including a former former Prime Minister Tony Blair, and then a few others. And it's basically a pro-China. From what I can gather, it's a private members pro-China pressure group that operates in the UK to further push Chinese businesses in the West, but also pushes, because of the nature of China itself, it also pushes the Chinese state and the values of the Chinese state as well.
Yeah, that's terrifying. I think these people, they just look at China and they feel envious, right? Like,
if only we could do this.
Yeah, then whenever they get a chance to, they do.
Well, I mean, I was so tempted to say. I know if I said this because again, it would have been my face and IRL and everything. I know I said this would have gone, probably would have freaked out about it a bit. But I mean, I was tempted to say to Boris, listen, you've got a supermajority. During the pandemic, you passed emergency legislation to have greater governmental control. If you're going to go down the route of being an authoritarian, can we be a right-wing authoritarian, Boris? Can we start looking at the think tanks, London and the universities, and maybe buying some helicopters and something along those lines? Can we just think about it? We don't have to do it. Just if we're going to be right, if we're going to be authoritarian and go down the route of dictatorship, can we do it right?
I mean, it's like AA said. I mean, they could roll back some of this hate speech legislation. They could do so many things right now, but they don't. Which just tells you that they really are just the rear, like they're part of the progressive. I
know what you mean.
Structure, right? Like I was just thinking, you're a Tory. I mean, I sort of thought about joining the party, but I got kind of disillusioned. I mean,
what you have is ever since Thatcher. I mean, I think one of the problems with the Conservative Party is that it's basically been two parties since Thatcher. Ever since Thatcher was booted, there's been like this permanent schism in the party. But people have always said it's been down to Eurosceptics and those in favour of the EU. It really isn't, though. That's always a bit of a misnomer. It's actually quite deeper than that. It's basically social socially left conservatives and socially right, and the vast membership outside the M25, outside the metropolitan centres, are heavily socially right, and those within the Oxbridge, the Notting Hill sets, the sort of sects that Cameron and Gove and Boris came from, are on the socially left, and they're the ones that had been cultivated, their political careers cultivated under the reign of Blair. And then you have this, and one of the problems with, and I will admit this as a weakness for conservatism as a whole, is conservatives usually end up conserving policies introduced by leftists.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, because what we're doing is we just end up conserving Blairite policies by the whole. I mean, I know there's some that Boris he's looking to, like, he's got rid of like a department that Blair set up, and I was going, okay, well, that's a good start, but
yeah,
there was the whole ending under like teenage trans surgery too, but it's just it's always just a nibble here and nibble there. It's never anything substantial.
No, it's and I think that it's because there is and this is where the conservatives struggle in this country, is because when you're stuck in, I don't know, again, both of you live or lived in London, but the bubble aspect, I imagine, because I've been to London several times recently, and it is very different from the rest of the UK.
Yeah.
I imagine that if you're an MP and you live most of your working life in London, you end up thinking that the people in London, the media that exists within London, quite equally represents the views across the country. And that's what a lot of conservatives, I think, end up inadvertently, MPs believing, that they actually think that the majority do believe in, like, these Black Lives Matter, and believe in this whole environment, and do obsess over the environment, and obsess over whatever latest fad that the Guardian puts out.
Well, or the Tory Graph. I mean, I get the Telegraph, and the women's magazine is full of progressive rubbish. It's just horrible.
Yeah, and because it filters down from, like, the cultural institutions of the arts, of the media, and it just filters through into mainstream politics, and then when that filters through, into party policy, and then you have this shift where, in many ways, there's large parts of the country where, in many ways, socially, on the ground, if you took, say, you went to, like, some parts of Devon, and you took like the whole gender or the whole race identity thing there, it would be a completely alien concept, and that's why you would have something like the booing that you would have at the Question Time. But and then you have, like, I know a lot of party members who are obviously, the average membership, age of membership is like 71, I think, and that's not a joke, by the way. That is actually 71. But a lot of them don't realise what's going on, and they really don't realise it. And they know something is on, and they know. And I think the first awakening they had was with the statues, and the situation of the statues. That really hit home to them.
People are starting to wake up a little, would you say?
Sorry, Justine?
Are they waking up a little bit? There's
yes. Yeah, they are aware of. One thing I've noticed ever since statues, they are aware of the long march through the institutions. I was pushing on my IRL Facebook pages that I'm members of, saying, listen, you need to look through what's been happening over this last several decades, and a lot of them are waking up to long march through the institutions. They're waking up to the NGO organisations. But they're basically where we were probably back in 2015, 2016. So they are quite a bit behind. And the problem is, because they're waking up, the party machine isn't, though, but the membership is. And I can see down the road a mental crash where you're going to have the membership will be at a stage where, listen, something needs to change, because it's not working.
Well, do you think the 80 Northern Tories Northern Tory MPs could have quite a key role to play in if there is some sort of split or change in what happens in the party?
I am anticipating that the 80 Tory MPs, the northern ones from the red seats, who are the socially conservative ones and the ones probably more in tune with the membership,
Yeah.
they have to be the ones that take over from the party. The MPs, the Conservative MPs of the home counties must be defeated.
Definitely.
Because
Rees-Mogg, I mean, he's fairly socially conservative, right?
he is, and he is the exception. Because if you look at any other conservative, I'll be careful because this is where I'm going with my home turf. And I know a lot of these MPs. If you look at a lot of them, they agree with us. And they agree with us on most topics. They agree with AA and Sargon on a lot of these topics, but they are equally aware that they have this really strange abject fear of the media, and I don't know why they do. I think that it's a real Stockholm situation, and I just don't. I don't understand it personally, and people have asked me why are they. I don't know.
At least once you get to a certain level within the party structure, you do get training, media training, and that sort of thing.
I've had media training.
Yeah,
it's not the media training is basically because this is where you go into your own personal career aspect. Is if you want to be a very successful conservative politician, you want the media attention, because if your name's out there, then you're relevant, and then when you're relevant, you get the good prizes from the party and from in positions of power. But if your names are not out there, then it means you're doing something wrong. And so there's like this really strange appeasement aspect as well that goes along with it.
So I guess it's kind of like a mix between the kind of the internal incentive structures to rising through the party, but this like obviously tied with the how the media reacts to your actions, etc., etc. So
Yeah. And so no matter what you do, the media is in control of you if you want to go through as a politician. But then you do what I would say the other alternative route was, if you make your impact as a politician, your first media impact, as something that would get a lot of attention, say like Rees-Mogg, where he was quite honest on Good Morning Britain with his abortion views, which definitely got him his attention. Again, that would also work. But then a lot of Conservatives are not courageous enough to do something like that, even if they think it and agree with it, because it carries it will carry a lot of pressures, because a lot of them are family people as well, and this is probably where I sympathise with more, because a lot of the younger, if you notice, a lot of the younger Conservatives, especially from the north, who haven't got families, they're probably a bit more cavalier with the way that they behave than the ones with families. Because it's not nice having protesters turn up outside your home, or it's not nice having protesters turn up at your surgeries, calling you Tory scum, spitting in your face, trying to assault you. And especially if you have a family, I can understand why a lot of them may be hesitant to go down that route. But it's a difficult one. Personally, if I tell you what, if I ever get anywhere in the party, I will. I've already said that I'm not going to do anything along the lines of what is happening at the moment, because it's quite clearly it doesn't work. I've rejected a lot of the media training, because I know that it really comes down to nothing. If you can't hold your own principles and hold your own views from a journalist, then I think you're on the hiding to nothing.
Well, at least the media is being more and more discredited these days, and seeing because of the competition from the internet. There's that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if this stream is going to get me in trouble, because I've just realized I've had the flag on screen for quite some time.
That was my fault. I got it.
That's all right. I said there was also some protests in Berlin and other places around the world.
We disavow.
Yeah, we disavow any collectivist left-wing movements such as National Socialism.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't condone any left-wing movements.
Were the other protests in Europe, were they of the same sort of motivations?
Yeah.
They were
Yeah,
big,
but-
weren't they, Berlin.
Yeah, Germany and France have introduced all of the European Union as a whole, probably, but they've introduced more stricter lockdowns. Germany was going to do more stricter lockdowns, and of course, I mean, the lockdowns that are proposed is basically on par with the Australian one, which is very strict, where basically you just don't leave the house.
Canada's
yeah,
pretty
I live in
strict as well, I've
ATV.
heard. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, I'm suddenly gone.
Sorry, I think everyone went silent for a moment.
But, yeah, I was just saying Canada's strict as well, but very strict, I've heard.
Yeah, I mean the German one does surprise me. Well, I didn't expect really the Germans to get so. I mean, I expect like the French or something to get a bit man the barricades, comrades. But the German ones does surprise me a bit. But
It's kind of refreshing, isn't it? The Germans coming out and
it must be bad. If the Germans are coming out, it must be bad.
Yeah.
It must be getting bad.
But it's interesting that the Nordic countries have been a lot less authoritarian with these lockdowns, and usually the left are always pointing at them, saying, "Yeah, we want to be like these guys over here," and now all of a sudden it's changed.
Yeah, be like the Socialist People's Republic of Denmark.
Yeah, well, that's
I remember
what they usually want. But in this case, it sounds like Denmark. I know Sweden has been quite comparatively lax, and yet their overall numbers haven't been any worse.
No, they haven't been, and I mean, I would like Norway. I mean, I know Norway's quite sparsely populated, and of course, sparsely populated areas naturally in something like a pandemic. I guess you say like a pandemic or virus or something. I mean, even go back to the plague, the Black Death. Sparsely populated areas would fare better naturally because that's how it works. But I
mean, they still have cities, and it seems as though they kind of more or less went about their business while taking certain precautions in kind of sensible ways.
Yeah, they did, and I think that they did. I think they did it right. I mean, I think the problem is it was the way that they tanked the economy. I mean, there's also a bit of fake news going around because like this image here, it says like, oh, this is London, and this is like that's not London, that's Minsk.
It doesn't even look like London, for fuck's sake.
No, that's Minsk, and I can tell you that's Minsk for a start because number one, that's the flags of the counter protest there. So I mean, there's a few people going on here spreading a lot of fake news, and oh my god, there's that guy again. Thousands of anti-lockdown protests gathered in London to claim coronavirus is a hoax. I don't think they say coronavirus itself is a hoax. I think they're saying that the response to it is questionable at best.
I think that's what I've seen, like the Guardian, BBC, those sort of outlets have been kind of misrepresenting what they're actually saying is a hoax, and I think they kind of frame it as the actual they're saying the disease itself is a hoax rather than the actual measures.
Yeah, very few people. I mean, I saw a poll. Only about 5% of people think it's a complete hoax, but a lot of people think that it is. The reactions are unreasonable.
Yes.
What does it say? Who owns the? Oh,
it's the QAnon.
QAnon,
and I only found out this week what it was about, and I thought it was pretty hilarious. I don't know why people think it's a bit. I think it's pretty hilarious.
I mean, I saw like another thing. I just like the Guardian on Facebook now, just so I can just hate just view their articles, but they're calling it a anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
Well, that's pretty rude to for the Guardian to assume that paedophiles have to be Jewish.
Yeah, no, it's pretty anti-Semitic of them, really.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty disgusting, Guardian. Actually, I might report it to the cyber police force that's been set up to deal with people breaking the Communications Act for hate speech. So I might report the Guardian for that because that's
It's a
pretty.
good plan you got there.
Yeah. Well,
Godspeed.
is this when you have you been looking into the Epstein matter?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have looked into the Epstein matter when it all went down, and I am still waiting for Ghislaine Maxwell's accidental
Yes.
slipping over and smashing her head several times in the shower.
They were signaling that she was apparently depressed in a couple weeks ago. I saw.
Oh yeah,
God.
yeah. She's asking to get out of solitary confinement because she's depressed.
Apparently, she had should caught the coof as well and had corona. So
Oh, God.
maybe they're lining it all up. Maybe it'll be a death. She'll die from the first person to die from corona.
I say death by 1,000 media reports.
There's that flag again. It's
haunting us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm in the front seat waiting for this trial if it ever happens.
I'd be surprised if it does, unfortunately.
I mean, there's a lot of powerful people. I mean, it's quite clear there's a lot of powerful people involved with Epstein. I don't think anything is going to come from it personally.
One of the things that's been quite disappointing for me is that at least in our sort of circles, and even just on the internet generally, Epstein was just a well-known case of that's something fishy. But a lot of normies, like, I would just believe the story, or that I've seen so many people just like, oh, have you seen the Netflix thing on Jeffrey Epstein? It's so crazy. I never knew that. It's like I just don't see how people can be so like not sick, but you're just like so uninformed about these things that like are happening. Just
yeah.
And the thing is, it's a good introduction, but they leave out the sort of almost the most important element, which is the blackmail side of it.
It's quite watered down, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that they focused on the fact that they were targeting these like working class girls, and that really made me angry. You know, the fact that they would pride themselves on going through, like, we go to trailer parks and we find Jeffrey's type, you know, just these sort of girls from these broken homes. But there's that. So, you know, that they did put a spotlight on that, but they left out the sort of the fact that, you know, there were cameras everywhere, that this is a political blackmail scheme.
I mean,
and that goes back.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say that goes back to the QAnon thing. I mean, are they wrong? Because, I mean, probably they're wrong in. I mean, there's an element of truth with the movement. This organization. I mean, the fact that it's a conspiracy theory, and the fact that I don't believe that Trump is fighting the secret war against the intergalactic pedophile organization. That is, and I don't believe that like between good and evil and all everything like that involved. I don't think that that's happening, but I do think that there is a element of truth that those with immense wealth and power do happen. There does seem to be this paedophile connection, and I think one thing that has been missed out a lot of it recently is that of Hollywood. I mean, it's been like Corey Feldman and a lot of actors, child actors, who have come through really, you know, messed up. Have been now, you know, saying that actually, you know, forget the Me Too, it's been pedophiles, pedophilia in Hollywood is a massive problem.
I think it's the 1920s or something. That's been a problem.
Yeah.
Like, it has a really long history.
Yeah, and they're targeting boys heavily, you know, in addition to girls. That's another thing.
Yeah, and because obviously, you know, with Epstein, it was it all girls with Epstein? Because I don't think any boys were ever.
I think it was. Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
I think it might have been Sean Atwood actually, but I do remember somebody saying that apparently they would procure boys if the person was of that persuasion.
Yeah. there's the guy who owns Victoria's Secret and all that. Like, I've forgotten the guy's name now, but he's a massive businessman and one of Epstein's. Epstein was his financial advisor, and he was really deeply connected, and so he's supposedly the higher up in the organization, and supposedly there was a gay connection there, like that Epstein was getting him little boys, and then they had some massive falling out, and I think Epstein was trying to blackmail him.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. And of course, you had our very own Prince Andrew mixed up in it all.
son.
But I mean, what really bothers me that he just, well, obviously if he's Epstein's getting him teenage girls, that is bad, and it's also bad that he just hangs out with people like that.
Yeah, but I mean, Prince Andrew has always been known, even when he was younger, as a like a debaucherer. That and all that. He was well known to be that sort of party prince. Very similar to how Harry was, when he was younger, known as to be the party prince. Now Harry is now the cucked prince, the prince held hostage by the Valley Girl.
Most embarrassing prince ever.
Truly.
Yeah. I'd rather have the Nazi prince, to be honest.
Yeah.
Nazi with some self-respect.
I thought you meant Edward VIII there for a minute, but then
I was going to say I want the based Harry back, the Harry that got drunk in Munich. That Harry.
Wore the SS uniform.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Megan's
I wonder what his. Sorry.
Megan's probably, making him pay for that every time he steps out of line. She reminds him.
Yes. Don't you raise your voice with me. Remember, you're not the one who went down dressed as that horrible fascist uniform. How can we ever tell our friends at the next party that you dressed up as such a wicked people?
Oh, the calamity.
Yeah. I wonder how many actually out, when because they're doing that new progressive thing, that new like social justice progressive thing that they're working on together. I hope that I might contact someone that can go to one of those events in America and just hold up a massive banner of when he was walking around Munich in the SS uniform, just from the sun images, and just say, yeah, is this progressive enough? Is this the future you want, Harry?
I think they'd enjoy that.
Yeah, that would be quite a good one to do if anyone watches this and is in America, and you can get to the event, then please do so. Do something like that.
You don't want to be Diana'd, so you've got to be careful.
Yeah, I mean Meghan. I mean, I tell you what, Meghan needs to be very careful about who she attacks, because she sort of went on against the British government a bit, and it's like, yeah. Well, I tell you what, I mean, avoid. All I can say to you, dear, is avoid dodgy dark car tunnels. If you're going to go down that route.
That flag snuck back into the frame again. It seems to have like a.
Oh God, it has, hasn't it? Oh, there we go. We got the Liberty flag.
There, don't tread on me. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to discuss while we're here?
Oh, it's back again, isn't it?
Is it back again?
Yeah, look on the right-hand side.
Oh, for God. Well, that's not me. That's some Antifa retard putting up there. That's not me. I can't be held responsible for that in YouTube.
You clicked on the photo. You're thereby responsible.
Yeah, I can't be held responsible. It's on Twitter's platform. Twitter's responsible. Twitter are the real Nazis.
Yeah, Twitter and YouTube can fight it out between each other.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
So anything else you guys like to discuss? Is there anything?
I've hit the high notes.
High notes.
You, Plantagenet.
Not that I can think of. I've pretty much been on a news blackout for most of the week. Didn't have Wi-Fi most of the time I was away, so yeah, I've been out of it.
I was going to say, Plantagenet, have you been part of the that Crusader Kings stream?
Yeah, I have been.
Yeah,
Haven't you? Yeah.
yeah, I've been watching a bit of it. I do have Crusader Kings, but it stopped working on my PC, so I can't play it anymore. Because I was asked, do you want to sign up? I was like, well, I'd love to, but I can't because
You need to upgrade your get a new computer.
well, I'm going to wait for the third one because it's going to be out in a few days.
Oh yeah, it isn't releasing. That's why the second one's free, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And but I again, I have to think about my party position because I can't go on a stream with you and Harry, and because you two end up just first thing you do is you expel the Jews.
Do you play Crusader Kings and chat about it?
Yeah, they play Crusader Kings, but the trouble is every time, like every single episode, they just first thing they do is right, we just borrow from the Jews and then we expel them.
Well, the meme review was pretty. When it was Jack doing the meme review, it got his channel was definitely not getting monetized after that.
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah, guys, okay, can we have a nice PG stream? I want to get monetized. 5 minutes for it, that's out the window.
Yeah, I'm surprised Paradox even puts that option in the game because it's a German game developer, and they put like an option just to expel the Jews in the game.
They're usually very sensitive about these matters.
Yeah.
I guess Paradox put the historical immersion first, so you got respect them for
that. Yeah, and I mean it is. I mean I remember when I did play it, it was handy because you do a lot of borrowing, and it's like got enough now, and then they say, oh yeah, okay, we want the payback now, and it's like, well, you are in the minority. Okay, that's probably getting a bit too spicy now.
Now the stream's really in trouble.
Yeah.
I think I got to run. But
yeah, I was going to say we'll probably end it now. Thank you both for coming on. And next week we'll be back at the normal time of Friday, and it will be with Not So Obvious and Owine, hopefully. But until then, thank you both, and I'll see you all next week.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.